Hello students, welcome to this part 2 of this anatomy review. The general anatomy that will help you to build the confidence to read the subject of the anatomy. In the part 1 we have seen the general anatomy basics, terminologies, the bone, the joints, the muscle and rest of the things we are going to discuss in this part 2. Now we are going to begin with the connective tissue, the blood vessels, the skin fascia, few of the nervous tissue slide, and whatever we see along this path we will discuss, and I hope this review will make you easy reading anatomy. So let us begin. This slide focuses on the connective tissue, their types, and basic of the what makes this connective tissue and their fibers. Now, what kind of connective tissue fibers are there in the body? They are majorly collagen fibers. You have something called as elastic fibers, and then you have something called as reticular fibers. Three major connective tissue fibers. All of them are secreted by a special shell. We call it as fibrocytes. Fibrocytes or fibroblasts are the cells, as the name suggests, which produce your connective tissue fibers. We call it as majorly the fibers are collagen fibers, the elastic and reticular. See, the occurrence of these fibers determines the nature of that tissue. Collagen fibers are a little bit rough. They provide the rigidity, the firmness, and at times even the flexibility. Elasticity is imparted by the elastic fibers. There is a change of proteins here. The elastin protein is a major content here, and a different type of collagen makes your reticular fibers, and they are easily seen with a special staining that contains silver salts. So organophilic fiber or this fibers takes your black staining with the silver stains, and that is why these reticular fibers they are seen in cellular organs, which are your majorly the lymphoid organs, the liver. These kinds of cellular parenchymus organ are supported by these reticular fibers over which your cells will reside. Now, if you observe, the collagen fibers are thick, they are running parallel to each other in the bundles, whereas there is a branching that you've seen in case of elastic fiber as well as reticular fiber. In the connective tissue, you will see the adipose cells as well. What happens to the connective tissue, what is their function is binding together all of the things that are there in the body, the different organs, the different component of your basic tissues, they are bind together by this connective tissue, and connective tissue fibers are the major content there with some of the ground matrix and some of the cells like fibrocytes, fibroblasts are there. Some of the cells of the blood lineage will be there at times. Adipose tissue, again, a major component of your superficial fascia in the body that you can palpate with your hand. In the quite fat person, you can feel the texture of that fat, semi-liquid to, you know, at times even it feels very hard. So this fat, two types, yellow fat and brown fat. Brown fat is healthy fat that you see in the newborns, in the back of the adults. They are quite good for the body, a brown fat. But the yellow fat, which is majorly cholesterol and the unhealthy lipids that are there, that is very dangerous. Okay, but you will see the details of that in the histology lectures. Okay, but this fat is again nothing but the connective tissue. And you have to know that how the collagen, how the elastic, how the reticular fibers and the associated ground matrix and the different types of cells make your connective tissue, the nature whether they are dense, whether they are loose, whether they are in bundles, whether they are branching, makes a special topic of connective tissue in the general as well as histology. So, general anatomy or the histology, if you master one of the connective tissue chapters, you can safely score few marks in the anatomy, and it is very important for the understanding as well. So, do revise, do focus on this connective tissue. Collagen fibers make up your bone, cartilage, tendons, this kind of things. Your elastic fibers make up your few of the elastic ligaments. The elastic cartilage will have some kind of elastic fibers in that, in the elastic cartilage. This kind of tissue is also seen in the large arteries requiring the expansion and again the relaxation. So this, like in the aorta, they have elastic fiber. This elastic artery, we call those aortas are the as the elastic arteries. So elastic fibers are needed, you know, at many places. They are branch, they have the recoiling property because of that specialized protein called as elastin. Reticular fiber can be called as modified collagen fibers, thin as compared to the main collagen, and they are seen in the skin, the supporting tissue, in the cellular organs that we have just discussed in the last slide, like the liver, the spleen, the lymph nodes. They are supported by this reticular tissue. Okay, and in the dermis of the skin, you have the lower layer called as reticular layer, papillary and reticular layer. So this collagen fiber are there. Okay, so again a support tissue, a binding tissue, this connective tissue plays an important role. The fat is a reservoir of energy, you know, it produces the heat, and when the adverse condition can be utilized again for the energy production. So at times it gives support to few of the tissue in your body. So it's not that every fat is a useless thing or a wastage. Your kidney, your anal canal, they all are supported by the fat. If that fat is gone, they will prolapse, they will come out of their original position. And that is why even the fat can be handy at times. Now coming to the next important topic in the general anatomy review is blood vessels. Why we need to know about the blood vessel is because blood vessels are the channels that give you the nourishment. You absorb something, you inhale something, and it is distributed to your tissue level through the blood vessels. That is the function of blood vessels, to control the release of the nutrients, be it a solid, be it a liquid, be it your air, carbon dioxide, CO2, nitrogen, whatever is coming there. So release of oxygen, exchange of the different materials, carriage of carbon dioxide again to release into the external environment. This is all is possible because of the blood vessels. So blood vessels are very important. They are, and they are, if they are suffered, if they are somehow deceased, oh my god, you know what happens. So life threatening conditions happen if there is a damage to the blood vessel. That is why the structure of blood vessel is paramount importance for any medical student. Now, in the structure, if you take a section through the blood vessel, generally a blood vessel has a lumen. It has a lining of epithelium, we call it as endothelium, with the flat nuclei, the flat cells. And if you take a cross section through it, you may see this kind of things. A very large blood vessel could be there, a very medium sized blood vessel could be there, a vein with a different kind of coverings could be there, and a very small thin walled structure could be there, with only single lining. We call it as the thinnest of the blood vessels are known as capillary. The largest of them are elastic and the large are veins. So you may have any of this texture, the architecture of the blood vessel, but these are the basic things. Generally, your blood vessel are having three layers. From inside to outside, they are called as tunica intima, media, and externa or the adventitia. Three layers, tunica, three tunics, interna, media, and externa. Externa is also known as the adventitia because of the larger number of fibers which are there. Okay, so adventitia is something fibrous in nature. Surface layer is the adventitia or the external layer. The middle layer is also known as tunica media. Now this media holds very great importance when it comes to the structure of the blood vessel. Why? Because if the media in case of the artery contains this kind of wavy elastic fibers, this artery will be called as elastic artery. If this media contains this kind of smooth muscle cells in the media, smooth muscle cells, this is called as muscular artery, and they differ in their function. Muscular artery obviously will be less expansile and they'll be distributing blood little bit far away from the heart. Whereas the elastic artery is very much elastic, expansile, and they are conductive in nature. So they will resist the high pressure of the heart with which they are very much intimately related. So you don't want to damage your heart. So you have abundance of elastic material inside the artery in the tunica media particularly. And this artery is called as elastic artery. Second type of artery is known as muscular artery. Very much any organ supplied by any artery is likely to be the muscular, any muscle for that matter. Any big artery going into the limbs, they are all muscular arteries. Okay, like radial artery, the ulnar artery, the femoral artery, popliteal artery, tibial arteries, they are all muscular artery. Veins have a peculiar character that their intima media are inconspicuous, but they have abundance of the fibers in the adventitia, and this is the only well developed layer in case of veins. Now the veins are generally collapse, they have the collapse lumen, okay, and they may contain the walls inside if they are the bigger size, especially the limb veins. Okay, structurally they are quite similar to the arteries. If you see the naked eye, you will only feel that the veins are thin, whereas the arteries have thick wall. That is the one gross feature. And the lumen is very much continuous and circular in case of arteries. So it's a patent lumen. If you see the arteries with the naked eyes in the dissection hall, and these veins may be collapse, may be damaged, because of the thin nature and because they don't have too many rather layers to develop, only the adventitia or the externa is well developed. Now the blood vessels at work are these capillaries. So read carefully through your books about the capillaries. The terminal blood vessels where the exchange of material will happen at the tissue level. These are the capillaries. They have different types of the capillaries, the continuous capillaries, the discontinuous capillaries, the sinusoidal capillaries, the fenestrated capillaries. They will work at their position to allow the selective entry and exit of few substances through their lumen into the tissue. So this is the capillary. So capillary, be careful if you are in a really good institute. You may have a separate short note on the capillary. Why I am saying institute? Because see, generally the average student will focus on elastic, muscular, and average institute. Likewise, to maintain that pass-fail ratio, will focus on the gross things. If you go a little bit deeper at the capillary level as the blood goes, the real exchange of knowledge, the real exchange of material is likely to happen there, and you might be tested for the deeper, more deeper thing. Okay, and that is what is really expected from the students, to go deep, to go higher into their studies. No matter from where you gain it, you have to be a deeper one so that these things don't trouble you. Okay, so let us go ahead. As we have discussed again, the capillary, their types: continuous, fenestrated, sinusoidal. Naturally, where the leakage of the blood or the nutrients from the blood doesn't need to be supervised too much, you will have fenestration or the sinusoidal gaps in this wall, in this epithelium of or the basement membranes of the capillary. But in case of say brain, you can't risk that, and you have the continuous capillaries. Now let us focus onto another chapter, and this is a very important one, that you know something about the skin when you learn the general anatomy, because you are going to dissect through the skin and the layers of the body tissues. So skin plays an important role, and the structure of the skin is very unique. See, there is a epithelium that covers all of our body via skin, I would say, and that epithelium and its extension deeper is very important part, that we call it as skin. So skin has basically two major layers called as epidermis and the dermis. And the epidermis has this around 5 layers called as basal layer, spinous layer, granular layer, lucidum, and corneum. This is R. Okay, so basal layer, spinous layer, granular, lucidum, corneum, and the cells will go from the basal layer, changing themselves morphologically, losing their nuclei, and finally forming the keratin that you see on your skin. The glossy material, the shining material, the proteinaceous thing that covers your surface of the skin is the keratin material. And this is the result of the death of this cells happening slowly over the period of around 28 days. Okay, this is known as turnover period from the basal layer, which is highly mitotic layer, and they will go through these processes, and the layers will become likewise. If they develop some spiny appearance, we call it as spiny layer. If they have some granules of the hyaline material, the proteinaceous material inside the cytoplasm, we call it as a granular layer. Then if they have a transparent layer, we call it as lucidum. And if they have a surface keratin layer, we call it as stratum corneum. And they are there, with the exception of this, which many books refer stratum lucidum as the only layer present, different in some kind of skin, depending on the thickness of this corneum and presence or absence of the hair and the sebaceous gland and the sweat gland. We divide the skin into thick and thin. So this thick skin only will have the lucidum as per many of the books. Some of the books mention it as the artifact, or the, I would say, some of the fault of the staining and all. Okay. Now, as you go on studying the skin, you understand basically two layers are there. One is epidermis. Of this layer, we call it as epidermis, and the layer which is deep down is the dermis. Now, the dermis and the epidermis are the major layers, but the dermis also have a papillary layer and a fibrous or the reticular layer. Okay, where you have majorly type 4 type 3 collagen fibers. Here papillary layer will have a little bit of denser type 1, type 2 collagen fibers dominant here, and this epithelium, which is the stratified squamous keratinized epithelium, will come, okay, will come down to form few of the glands like Schwett gland, the sebaceous gland, and the duct will open either on the surface or onto the hair follicle, which we have not displayed here, but generally this sebaceous gland is associated with the hair follicle that will open onto the surface of the epithelium. Understand? Now this much idea you should have where is the presence of the epithelium on the surface and the derivative of that epithelium, which we have shown it here as few of the glands are located into the dermis. The dermis have papillary and the reticular or the fibrous layer of the dermis. So this basic knowledge is very much handy because this may straightway come as a short note either from the general anatomy or mostly from the histology book. So you should be aware of this. Now I want you to focus on something we call it as few of the layers of the body tissue. A general plan what you get inside the body, because many of you must have started the dissection by this time and you must have uncovered all these layers. But for those who are just joining and yet not have touched anything from the dissection, I want you to know that there are layers from superficial to the deeper layer. The skin, if you uncover skin, you will have superficial fascia rich in the fat and the some of the skin, that is the cutaneous capillaries, the blood vessels which are there. Few of the nerves will be located in this layer. And if you uncover this, you will have a deep fascia that covers your bone as well as few of the deeper muscles. That is your deep fascia. Now, this deep fascia can extend onto the surface. It can come out as a in the form of aponeurosis, tendon, and insert onto one of your other sides, onto the fingers, onto some other bone, wherever it has to. Now if you go still deeper, the bone will have a marrow cavity where you will have the blood precursor cell. Maybe if the person is of old age, the yellow bone marrow in the shaft, and at the ends the red bone marrow. And similarly you have this structure again, skin, the superficial fascia, the deep fascia, the muscle or bone. This body plan you have to be aware of when you go into the dissection hall. What we are going to see, how much depth we have to cut, how much is enough for the skin cut, how much is enough for the fascia cut, how to extend the incision over the skin, how to go, how to clear that muscle, what to expect deeper down. So this slide is specially for that, and this finishes our general anatomy review. I hope you have liked these videos and this will help you to understand the anatomy in the proper way. So stay tuned, subscribe as you go on subscribing. If the enough number are met, we are going to go live for you. Thank you.